Welcome to History Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Robbin Bain, pageant winner and Today Girl, is dead at 87. Could explode at any moment. Why war in Israel is making Jordan's king and queen so nervous. Dabo Swinney makes history as Clemson football's all-time winningest head coach with his 166th win. Narrative war. China's TikTok users are being told that Aristotle did not exist. Deciphering ancient Egypt's hieroglyphics. Robbin Bain, pageant winner and Today Girl, is dead at 87. New York Times. Robin Mele Gudieri, who won the 1959 Miss Rheingold contest to promote beer, has died aged 87. In her role as Miss Rheingold, Gudieri appeared in advertisements and made personal appearances. In addition, she worked as a model and in television before becoming one of the Today Girls on NBC's Today Show. Could explode at any moment. Why war in Israel is making Jordan's king and queen so nervous. ABC. The escalating war in Gaza is putting pressure on Jordan as it tries to maintain its diplomatic ties with neighbors and allies, such as the U.S. Jordan has close ties with the U.S. and has a peace deal with Israel, but its citizens have been protesting against Israel's actions in Gaza, putting pressure on Jordan's leaders to take action. At the same time, Jordan is seen as a key mediator in any potential negotiations for peace between Israel and Palestine. However, Jordan is already dealing with complex problems at home, including high unemployment and inflation, a leadership crisis, and a thriving trafficking operation of weapons and drugs. Another protracted war along its borders is the last thing it needs. Jordan and Israel have maintained security and diplomatic ties since signing a peace agreement almost 30 years ago. However, there has always been little warmth among the Jordanian population for Israel, especially among those with Palestinian roots. The recent war in Gaza has put Jordan's King Abdullah under pressure to cut diplomatic ties with Israel, which could impact the aid the country receives from the U.S. Jordan's leaders have criticized Israel's actions in Gaza and called for an immediate ceasefire. Queen Rania of Jordan has been particularly vocal in her criticism, calling on Western leaders to condemn Israel's killing of Palestinian civilians. Jordan is already dealing with a complex set of challenges, including water scarcity, high unemployment, and a leadership crisis. The country relies on imports for almost 90% of its energy and national grain consumption needs. The leadership crisis was brought to the forefront earlier this year when a plot involving the king's half-brother, Prince Hamza bin Hussein, was uncovered. The crisis with Prince Hamza has added to the vulnerability that Jordanians are feeling and has cast a shadow over the king. Jordan is also concerned about the influx of weapons into the West Bank and the potential for mass displacement of Palestinians, which it sees as a red line that could lead to war. Dabo Swinney makes history as Clemson football's all-time winningest head coach with his 166th win. Yahoo! Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney has become the all-time winningest head coach in Clemson football history. Swinney earned his 166th win with the Tigers' victory over Notre Dame, surpassing the previous record set by Frank Howard. Swinney began his head coaching career with Clemson in 2008 and has since built an impressive resume in college football. The win over Notre Dame will go down in Clemson's history books. Narrative war. China's TikTok users are being told that Aristotle did not exist. South China Morning Post. Chinese scholar Jin Sonrong has sparked a debate about the existence of Aristotle, arguing that there is no written record before the 13th century that can prove the philosopher's existence. Jin's statements reflect a growing trend among some nationalistic intellectuals in China who argue for a less Western-centric version of history. This comes as China engages in a war of narratives with the U.S. and its allies. Western scholars have also raised doubts about China's 5,000-year history. Deciphering ancient Egypt's hieroglyphics. RFI. The Sound Kitchen weekly podcast, published every Saturday, provides listeners with a variety of content including news, interviews, quizzes, and music. Listeners are encouraged to send in their music requests to be played on the show. The podcast also features other RFI podcasts such as Paris Perspective, Spotlight on France, and Les Voisins du 12 bis. The RFI English service also provides breaking news articles on their website, as well as in-depth analysis of current affairs in France and around the world. The Sound Kitchen podcast also mentions the availability of free books for young adults written by Br. Gerald Muller, a retired music teacher. The books are meant to help young readers improve their English language skills. The podcast also mentions the RFI English Club's Facebook page, where members of the independent RFI English Clubs can connect with each other. The podcast concludes with the announcement of the winners from the previous week's quiz, and the introduction of a new quiz question for listeners to answer. Signs point to another global stock market crash. Somebody tell the Fed. South China Morning Post. The excess liquidity in financial markets is evaporating, which could lead to a market crash and a repeat of previous crashes, such as Black Monday in 1987, according to economists John Greenwood and Steve Hink. They argue that U.S. Federal Reserve policies are threatening U.S. financial markets and the economy, and that the central bank is overlooking danger signals. The authors warn that a monetary contraction could lead to higher market interest rates, an economic slump, recession, and falling inflation. The current situation is reminiscent of 1987 and 1929, they say. The shortlisted Kundal History Prize authors share insights on their work. The Globe and Mail. The three shortlisted authors for the 2023 Kundal History Prize have answered questions about their nominated works. Tanya Branigan, nominated for Red Memory, The Afterlives of China's Cultural Revolution, discusses the complex relationship between China and the Cultural Revolution. James Morton Turner, nominated for Charged, A History of Batteries and Lessons for a Clean Energy Future, expresses concerns about the environmental impact of clean energy production. Kate Cooper, nominated for Queens of a Fallen World, The Lost Women of Augustine's Confessions, talks about the inspiration she finds in the stories of marginalized individuals in history. It's an art intervention. Kent Monkman's most famous character retells the history of Turtle Island in a 2-volume memoir. The Toronto Star. The first volume of the Memoirs of Miss Chief Eagle Testicle, a true and exact accounting of the history of Turtle Island, has been published, with the second volume to follow shortly. The memoirs are the first foray into the world of print for the gender-fluid alter ego of acclaimed Cree artist Kent Monkman. The first volume of the memoirs covers Miss Chief's memories from the creation of the universe to the introduction of European settlers in Canada's Confederation in 1967. The second volume explores more recent history, including the ongoing genocide of Indigenous peoples, the introduction of children's work camps, residential schools, the 60s scoop and environmental devastation. The memoirs are co-written by Monkman and Giselle Gordon. And that's all for today's news. Let's quickly recap what we've learned. Robbin Gaudieri, the winner of the 1959 Miss Rheingold contest, has sadly passed away at the age of 87. She was not only a pageant winner but also worked as a model and appeared on NBC's Today show as one of the Today girls. The escalating war in Gaza is putting pressure on Jordan as it tries to maintain its diplomatic ties with neighbors and allies, while also dealing with complex issues at home. Dabo Swinney has made history as Clemson football's all-time winningest head coach, surpassing the previous record set by Frank Howard. Chinese scholar Jean Sonrong has sparked a debate about the existence of Aristotle, reflecting a growing trend among some nationalistic intellectuals in China who argue for a less Western-centric version of history. The Sound Kitchen weekly podcast offers a variety of content, including news, interviews, quizzes, and music. Listeners can also request their favorite music to be played on the show. Economists warn of a potential global stock market crash as excess liquidity in financial markets evaporates, and the U.S. Federal Reserve overlooks danger signals. The shortlisted authors for the 2023 Kundal History Prize have shared insights on their nominated works, discussing topics such as China's Cultural Revolution, the environmental impact of clean energy, and the stories of marginalized individuals in history. Acclaimed Cree artist Kent Monkman has published the first volume of the Memoirs of Miss Chief Eagle Testicle, a 2-volume memoir that retells the history of Turtle Island from a gender-fluid perspective. Now, let's dive into some analysis. In the world of beauty and entertainment, we bid farewell to Robbin Gaudieri, a trailblazer who made her mark in the 1950s and 60s. Her role as Miss Rheingold and as one of the Today girls exemplified the changing roles and opportunities for women during that time. Turning our attention to the Middle East, the war in Gaza is not only affecting Israel and Palestine but also the neighboring country of Jordan. As a key mediator, Jordan faces the challenging task of maintaining diplomatic ties with Israel while also dealing with internal issues such as unemployment and a leadership crisis. The pressure is mounting, and it remains to be seen how Jordan will navigate these treacherous waters. In the realm of sports, Dabo Swinney has cemented his place in Clemson football history as the winningest head coach. With his impressive record, Swinney has undoubtedly left a lasting legacy in the world of college football. Meanwhile, in China, a debate is brewing over the existence of Aristotle. This reflects a larger trend of nationalistic intellectuals challenging Western-centric versions of history. As China engages in a war of narratives with the US and its allies, it's clear that historical narratives are becoming increasingly important in shaping global perceptions. On the cultural front, Kent Monkman's memoirs offer a unique and thought-provoking perspective on the history of Turtle Island. By retelling this history through the eyes of the gender-fluid Miss Chief Eagle Testicle, Monkman challenges traditional narratives and sheds light on the ongoing struggles faced by Indigenous peoples. And finally, we must not forget the potential dangers lurking in the financial markets. Economists are sounding the alarm, warning of a possible market crash reminiscent of past disasters. As the U.S. Federal Reserve overlooks warning signs, we must remain vigilant and prepared for what may lie ahead. So, my dear viewers, what are your thoughts on these diverse and intriguing stories? Do you have any questions or insights to share? The floor is yours. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.